She could buy anything, except the one thing her son needed most. Madame Adora Ezenwa stood at the highest balcony of the Pearl House, the mansion she had built stone by stone, and whisper by whisper. Below, the city glittered like a bowl of scattered stars, neon on glass, headlights threading through the night. A hum of prosperity she had willed into existence with grit and strategy. People called her iron-hearted, a woman who turned deals into gold and competitors into memories. They were not entirely wrong, but even iron bends where love is concerned. Inside, the house was a portrait of success. Oil paintings of ancestors whose courage was legend, marble floors polished to a mirror, a staircase that curved like a silk ribbon. Staff moved with a rehearsed quiet, a symphony of service that kept the world convinced the Pearl House was perfect. Only one room, one heart, broke the illusion. Emeka's studio smelled of graphite and rain. He liked to leave the windows open whenever thunder braided the sky. He said storms cleared his thoughts. Sketches were pinned everywhere, faces he'd seen, hands caught mid-gesture, laughter frozen in charcoal. A few canvases glowed with color. A copper roof market, a child's bare feet splashing through puddles, his mother's face when she wasn't watching herself be seen. He sat by the window in his wheelchair, a blanket over his legs. The light from the storm made his skin glow like warm mahogany. He didn't look fragile, no. He looked deliberate. There was a steadiness to him, as if every breath was a chosen thing. Yet loneliness hovered around him, like a ghost that refused to leave. Adora watched her son from the doorway. He didn't see her. He was lost in the ache of a portrait he'd been working on for weeks, half-finished, as if he feared the end might disappoint him. She knew the feeling. For all her power, all her plans, she had not yet found a way to give him what he deserved. A partner who would love him not for the gates of the Pearl House, but for the soul within it. "Storm again," she said softly. He smiled without turning. "Storm's honest. It doesn't hide what it is." She stepped in, her heels whispering across the rug. "Have you eaten?" "A little," he said. "I'm not hungry for food tonight." Silence pressed between them. Adora felt the familiar tug. Say something motherly, something reassuring, something brave. She had built empires on words. But around Emeka, the right ones mattered more than any contract. "I met with Dr. Kalu," she began careful. "He thinks the new therapy could help with mobility." Emeka finished. He rotated slightly, meeting her eyes with kind patience. "I know. I'll try it, Mama." She nodded, grateful and helpless at once. He was 28, gentle, disarming, smarter than most of the board members who reported to her with trembling hands. He had a quick mind for design and a slower, deeper mind for people. He felt everything. Perhaps that was the problem. People, for their part, too often saw one thing about him and refused to look beyond it. A clap of thunder stitched the sky. He returned to his canvas. "You came to say something else." Adora drew a breath. Yes, it had been growing in her like a seed in a glass jar, visible, undeniable. A plan no respectable mother would admit aloud. And yet, she had crossed respectability long ago in pursuit of good ends. "I'm going to find you a wife," she said plainly. His brush paused. The storm held its breath. "A wife," he repeated, tasting the word like unfamiliar fruit. "Mama, listen first." She moved closer, and the iron in her spine spoke through her voice. "I have watched this city smile at you and withhold its heart. I have watched women admire your art and then ask a driver if the elevator fits your chair. The world is not kind, Emeka. I will not wait for it to become kind. I will act." "I don't need saving," he said softly. "I know. You need a chance." Her throat tightened. "Your father died before he could teach you what men pass to sons. I taught you what I knew. Numbers, risk, the weight of your own name. But love," she faltered, then steadied. "Love requires an introduction." He set the brush down. "What are you planning?" "A selection," she said, choosing the word with care. "Not a pageant, not a spectacle. A search. Quiet, controlled. I will find young women who need opportunity, and I will invite them here. Not to beg, to meet you, to live here for a time, to be seen, to see you, to be measured not by gowns or gossip, but by how they carry truth. He studied her. His eyes were his father's, warm brown, unwavering. You want to hire them? Adora didn't flinch. I want to invest in the possibility of love. He almost smiled at that. And what if none of them love me? Then none of them stay, she said. I am not buying devotion. I am building a road to it. If we do nothing, you keep painting, and I keep pretending the storm is music. We deserve more honesty than that. He turned fully now, chair whirring softly. This could go wrong. So could any life worth living, she replied. They let the storm speak for a while. Rain began, soft and clean. Adora pictured the city's edges, the markets where desperation wore lipstick and hope rented dresses, the church steps where young women prayed for a miracle that would pay a brother's hospital bill or erase a father's debt. She had come from those edges once. People forgot. She hadn't. How would you choose them? Emika asked at last. By story, she said. By what they want when no one is looking. I will ask a few trusted people. Matron Didi Emika at St. Jerome's, Pastor Aladiji, a teacher I sponsor in Succa. They will know the girls who are desperate enough to consider such an invitation and honest enough to deserve it. Desperate, he murmured, as if measuring the word against his dignity. Desperate is not dirty, Adora said. It is simply a door. Many of us came through it. They will be paid for their time. They will be respected. They will be free to go. And if one of them falls in love with the house, not me? Then the house will not love her back, she said with quiet steel. He laughed then, a small sound that loosened the knot in her chest. You always make impossible things sound like paperwork. That's because I finished paperwork, she said, and he laughed again. She reached for his hand. He let her hold it. Lightning stitched silver into the clouds. I cannot protect you from pain, she said. I can only make sure pain has a purpose. And if I say no, he asked, then I will fold this plan and burn it here, she said, eye steady. Say the word. He looked past her to the unfinished portrait, to the rain cleansing the city he both loved and feared. Let's try, he said finally, but on my terms. Name them. No performances, he said. No masquerade balls, no staged kindness. Real mornings, real conversation, and each woman gets something whether or not she stays. Work, scholarship, a path. We are not hunters. Adora bowed her head, pride warming her like a shawl. Agreed. He squeezed her fingers. And Mama. Yes, if we are building a road to love, he said, mouth quirked. Leave room for traffic in both directions. I am not a prize. I am a person. If I do not choose them, they are free to not choose me. Her throat ached with tenderness. Of course. That night, long after Emika had returned to his sketches, Adora assembled her war council in the smallest room in the house, the one with the low ceiling and the scarred table she refused to replace because it reminded her of beginnings. 3 people sat with her, Mr. Okafor, her lawyer, a patient man who carried the law as if it were a lantern, Muna, the head housekeeper, grandmother to everyone and afraid of no one, and Teyo, the young security chief who had a gift for listening to doors without eavesdropping. We will invite 4, Adora said, unfolding a list she had written by hand. 4 is enough to show contrast and small enough to protect dignity. Their names may change. This is a sketch, not a contract. What matters is who they are. She read the first. Chioma, 23. Orphan. Works since 16. Brilliant with numbers, no degree. Sends money to cousins who barely thank her. Fierce protector. That one will argue with God if she believes she's right. Muna nodded, eyes bright. We need a fighter. The second, Ngozi, 26. Beautiful in a way that makes trouble. A debt that isn't her fault hangs around her neck like a thief. She keeps smiling anyway. People assume vanity, where there is simply camouflage. Camouflage? Teyo asked. Adora smiled without humor. Pretty girls learn to wear the mask they are given. It is not always their size. The third, Amara, 20. Soft heart, clean hands. Family that will sell her kindness to solve their hunger. She will need protection most of all, from those who raised her. Mr. Okafor made a note. And the 4th, Adora's pen hesitated, then moved. Iphioma, 28. Smart enough to make a saint nervous. She wants out of scarcity, and she does not apologize for it. If greed bites, we will know. But if ambition is simply unparented hunger, perhaps we can teach it manners. Teo exhaled. This will be chaos. Life already is, Adora said. We are simply giving it better lighting. They discussed logistics, contracts that guaranteed dignity, a stipend for each woman regardless of outcome, therapists available without stigma, a small staff briefed on discretion under pain of dismissal. They would arrive one by one to avoid spectacle. They would each be given space, tasks, and time. Cameras would stay away. Gossip would starve. Madam, Muna said at last, voice gentle, and if your boy's heart breaks? Adora let the question settle. The storm had softened to rain. Then I will sit with him and let it rain, she said, and I will remind him that even broken hearts keep beating. When the meeting ended, the house exhaled, a quiet shift, like a ship changing course in the dark. Letters went out, not as summons, but as invitations that smelled faintly of cedar and rain. Somewhere, for young women would open them and feel something complicated. Hope with teeth. Adora returned to the studio. Emeka had fallen asleep in his chair, head tipped back, the unfinished portrait watching over him like a patient friend. She tucked the blanket closer around his knees. Outside, the city storm rinsed the night clean. Forgive me my courage, she whispered, and kissed his forehead. In the morning, the first reply would arrive, and the Pearl House would learn that love, invited honestly, does not walk, it enters. The news spread like wildfire through the village and the nearby city. Mrs. Adesawa, the rich widow, is hiring wives for her son. People whispered in the markets, on street corners, and at church gatherings. Some mocked it, others prayed to be chosen, and many desperate girls saw it as their one chance to escape poverty. For Mrs. Adesawa, the decision was calculated. She would bring 4 candidates into her mansion, test their loyalty, and from them, let fate reveal who truly loved her son Daniel. Daniel, however, knew nothing. His mother had kept it secret until the very day the girls arrived. The mansion, a sprawling estate with ivory pillars and polished marble floors, was dressed for an unusual welcome. Servants rushed about, placing flowers in vases and preparing guest rooms. The chandeliers gleamed as if awaiting royalty. Mrs. Adesawa stood at the balcony in a flowing wine-colored gown, her presence commanding. She thought of her son, Daniel, sitting silently in his wheelchair near the library. He had been distant, wounded by the pitying stares of outsiders and the betrayal of false friends who only cared for his family's wealth. Mother, Daniel said quietly, his eyes fixed on a book he wasn't really reading. Why is the house so noisy today? Are you hosting another charity event? Mrs. Adesawa hesitated, then replied, No, my son. Today, life is coming to knock on our door, and I pray you will open it. Daniel frowned, unsure what she meant. By noon, the grand gates opened, and one by one, the 4 young women were escorted into the mansion. One Amaka, a fiery beauty with skin like bronze and eyes that burned with ambition. She wore a crimson dress that clung to her curves, and though she smiled sweetly, her mind was sharp, calculating every detail. To her, this was not about love. It was about seizing an empire. 2. Halima, a shy, soft-spoken girl from a poor Muslim family. She wore a modest teal gown with a scarf that framed her gentle face. Her innocence was real, but so was her desperation. Her father's debts had crushed their household, and she saw this marriage as the only way to save her family. 3. Ngozi, outspoken, bold, and unapologetically confident. She walked in wearing a bright yellow dress, her laughter filling the hall before she even reached the family. She had been mocked in her village for being too proud, but here, she saw her chance to prove her worth. She was not afraid of the rich or their rules. 4. Chioma, quiet, observant, almost mysterious. She wore a simple white gown and carried an aura of peace. She was the only one who did not rush to greet Mrs. Adesawa with forced smiles. Instead, she bowed her head respectfully and said softly, "Thank you for welcoming me here." There was something about her stillness that unsettled the others. Mrs. Adesawa studied each girl carefully. She knew appearances could deceive. "Welcome to my home," she said, her voice echoing with authority. "You are not here to serve me, but to show me who you truly are. My son's heart is fragile, and I will not let him be broken again." The girls were led into the library where Daniel sat, his wheelchair angled by the window. He turned, surprised to see them, his eyes narrowing. "Mother, what is this?" he asked, his voice cold. Mrs. Adesawa stepped forward. "Daniel, these young women have come because they wish to know you. They are here to live with us, to share meals with us, to prove their hearts. You will choose who is worthy of your love." Daniel's jaw tightened. "So now I'm a prize to be won? A project for your amusement?" The room fell silent. The girls exchanged nervous glances. But then, Chioma stepped forward. "No, Daniel," she said softly, meeting his gaze. "You are not a prize. You are a man, and any woman who cannot see that does not deserve to be here." Her words cut through the tension like sunlight through storm clouds. Daniel blinked, startled. For the first time, his expression softened. That evening, Mrs. Adesawa arranged a grand dinner. The long dining table glittered with silverware and dishes of steaming delicacies. It was not just a meal, it was the first test. Amaka immediately leaned close to Daniel, her smile dazzling. "You must be so tired of being treated like glass," she whispered. "If you were mine, I'd make the world kneel at your feet." Her tone was seductive, but Daniel sensed her hunger was not for love, but for power. Halima, on the other hand, barely touched her food. She kept sneaking glances at Daniel, then quickly looking away. Finally, she gathered courage and said, "Daniel, I don't know how to talk to rich people, but I know how to listen if you'll let me." Her honesty made Daniel pause. Ngozi was bold, cracking jokes, teasing Daniel about his serious face. "Ah, billionaire's son, and still no smile? Are you sure you're not secretly a monk?" Everyone laughed. Even Daniel allowed a small smile to escape. Chioma remained quiet, simply watching. When Daniel asked why she wasn't speaking, she replied, "Because words can deceive, but actions cannot. I'd rather you see me than hear me." Her mysterious answer lingered in Daniel's mind long after dinner ended. That night, the mansion did not sleep. Amaka whispered to Ngozi in the hallway, "Don't you see? Whoever wins, Daniel will own everything. This house, this wealth. You better step aside, because I won't lose." Ngozi scoffed. "Try me. Daniel doesn't need a queen who worships money. He needs a woman who can make him laugh. That's me." Meanwhile, Halima prayed quietly in her room, tears streaming down her face. She wasn't sure if she wanted Daniel, or simply salvation for her family. And Chioma stood at the balcony under the moonlight, her white gown glowing faintly. She whispered to herself, "This is not about wealth. This is about destiny." Unknown to them all, Daniel sat awake in his own room, staring at the ceiling. For the first time in years, he felt his heart stirring, not from pity or loneliness, but from something real. But which of the women held that truth? The stage was set. The games had begun. The mansion grew louder with life. Laughter, whispers, and footsteps echoed through the grand halls, where silence once reigned. For years, Daniel had lived in quiet bitterness, but now, each day brought a new scene, a new spark. Yet beneath the smiles and polite manners, the women's hearts boiled with secrets. Mrs. Adesawa watched them closely from the shadows. "I have not invited brides," she thought. "I have invited storms. Let us see which will destroy and which will heal." On the third morning, Daniel rolled himself into the sunroom where the women sat, pretending to enjoy tea. They were caught off guard by his sudden presence, without his mother beside him. "You're all here for me, right?" Daniel said flatly, his eyes sharp. "Then let me see you for who you really are." He gestured to the garden outside. "Today, no maids will help you. You will work with your own hands. Plant something. Water it. Care for it. Wealth is nothing if it dies without roots, just like love." The women were stunned. A test. From him? Amaka smirked. "So the cripple has some fire after all," she thought, though her lips formed a polite smile. The sun blazed down as the four women walked into the sprawling garden. The soil was soft but dry. Servants handed them tools, but no instructions. Amaka took charge immediately. We should build something beautiful, roses, lilies, the flowers that catch the eye. She dug aggressively, ordering the others around. Her movements were graceful, but her temper flared when a servant laughed at her clumsy technique. Halima struggled, her delicate hands blistering. She knelt quietly, whispering prayers as she pressed seeds into the earth. She planted not flowers, but cassava roots. The other women mocked her choice. Ngozi laughed the whole time, tossing dirt at Amaka when she got too bossy. Haba, you think Daniel wants roses? That boy needs food in his belly. If I plant peppers, at least he'll taste fire. Her boldness made some servants clap in amusement. Chioma said nothing. She chose a small corner near a shaded tree and dug patiently. She placed seeds into the soil with care, humming softly. It wasn't grand or loud, but her calmness drew the attention of Daniel, who watched silently from the balcony above. By evening, their clothes were stained with earth, their hair messy. Amaka looked irritated. Halima was sore but hopeful. Ngozi laughed off her exhaustion, and Chioma wiped her brow, her expression unreadable. Daniel whispered to himself, "Some plant to show off, some to survive, and some to nurture. But which one truly sees me?" That night, tensions flared. Amaka cornered Halima in the hallway. "You think planting cassava will win his heart? Pathetic. You're a poor girl playing in a rich woman's world. Step aside before you embarrass yourself." Halima's eyes filled with tears, but she held her ground. If love is a competition of pride, then you've already lost. Meanwhile, Ngozi burst into laughter when she overheard them. "Ah, see this drama. Don't fight, my sisters. We all know Daniel will choose me." The boy smiled at my jokes. He needs joy, not pity, and certainly not desperation. But when Ngozi left, she too felt a sting of insecurity. What if Daniel didn't want laughter? What if he wanted peace? Chioma, as always, remained apart. She wrote something in her journal by candlelight, her shadow flickering across the walls. No one knew what she was thinking, and that mystery began to both intrigue and unsettle the others. Later that night, Daniel wheeled himself into his mother's chambers. "Mother, what are you doing to me?" he asked, his voice heavy. "You brought 4 strangers into my life, like I'm some prize animal. Do you think love works this way?" Mrs. Adesawa looked at him with tired eyes. "My son, you think I care about appearances? No, I care about your heart. I have watched you lock yourself away, refusing every woman who dared to look at you. If I must drag storms into your life to break those walls, then I will. You will not die lonely in this mansion." Daniel sighed, torn between anger and gratitude. "But how do I know any of them see me and not this house?" His mother's voice softened. "That is for you to find out. That is why I gave you the power to test them." Daniel fell silent. He hated to admit it, but she was right. The following evening, the mansion held a small gathering in the music hall. Daniel, though quiet, had always loved the piano. He rolled forward, placed his fingers on the keys, and began to play. The melody was haunting, a mix of sorrow and hope, echoing through the vast room. The women listened, each reacting in their own way. Amaka clapped dramatically. "Marvelous. You're not just rich, you're talented. A man of many gifts." But her praise sounded rehearsed. Halima's eyes shimmered with tears. She whispered, "Your soul is in your music." It was not meant for show. She said it almost to herself. Ngozi began to sing along, her bold voice filling the room. "If you play, I will sing. Together we'll wake this mansion from its grave." Laughter broke out among the guests. Chioma closed her eyes, letting the music wash over her. Then, when the song ended, she simply said, "Pain taught you how to play, but hope still lingers in your notes. Don't ever let anyone take that from you." Daniel's chest tightened. How could she see so deeply? Later that night, Amaka sneaked into the study. She began rifling through papers, her eyes widening at the sight of documents detailing Mrs. Adesawa's businesses. "If I control this family, all of this will be mine," she thought greedily. But she wasn't alone. Ngozi had followed her. Ah, Amaka the saint, Ngozi teased, leaning against the doorframe. Looking for love letters? Or bank accounts? Amaka hissed. Stay out of my way, Ngozi. Daniel deserves a woman who knows how to handle wealth. Ngozi smirked. No, he deserves someone who makes him forget his pain. That's me, not you. They didn't notice a shadow watching them from the corner, Chioma, who slipped away silently, saying nothing. The next morning, Daniel summoned them all to the grand hall. His voice was calm but firm. You think you're here to impress my mother. You're wrong. You're here to prove yourselves to me. And I'm not impressed by riches or flattery. I want truth. The girl stiffened, surprised at his boldness. From today, Daniel continued, I will test you, not with flowers or songs, but with honesty. If you have secrets, bring them forward. If you have lies, they will destroy you. His piercing gaze swept across them. Amaka's smile faltered. Ngozi bit her lip. Halima looked frightened. And Chioma, she only bowed her head, as though she had been expecting this all along. The real games were about to begin. The mansion no longer felt like a home. It felt like an arena. Every glance was sharpened like a blade. Every smile was painted with deceit. Daniel had challenged them to be honest, but honesty was the one thing they all feared most. Mrs. Adesawa stayed silent in the background, letting her son take control. She had set the stage, but now it was his play to command. At breakfast, Daniel wheeled himself into the grand dining hall, his presence cutting through the murmurs. He looked each woman in the eye before speaking. Today, you will tell me who you really are. No rehearsed lines, no polished answers. If you have secrets, I will know. If you have lies, they will crush you. The air grew heavy. The women shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Servants exchanged curious glances. Daniel gestured to Amaka first. You, speak. Amaka's eyes flickered with calculation. She adjusted her elegant head wrap and forced a gentle smile. I am Amaka, daughter of traders. I came here because I believe love should not be limited by circumstance. Daniel, I see strength in you, a man who deserves a partner who can stand proudly beside him. Her words flowed like silk, but her eyes betrayed hunger. Daniel leaned forward. You speak of standing proudly, yet I hear whispers of you sneaking into the study last night. Were you looking for my heart or my inheritance? The hall went still. Amaka froze, her face draining of color. Ngozi smirked. Amaka stammered. I was only curious. A wife must know her husband's world. Is that a crime? Daniel's voice hardened. It is not curiosity when you search in the dark. Amaka clenched her fists under the table. Her mask had cracked, but she refused to remove it completely. Daniel turned to Ngozi. And you? You laugh and jest, but who are you beneath the noise? Ngozi leaned back in her chair, her eyes dancing with defiance. I am Ngozi, born in the streets of ABA. I grew up fighting for every scrap of bread. I came here not because I believe in fairy tales, but because I know survival. I make people laugh, because if I don't, I'll drown in pain. You want honesty. I don't love you, Daniel. Not yet, but I could. Because unlike the rest, I will never pity you. I will challenge you, fight with you, fight for you. Gasps rippled across the room. Even Mrs. Adesawa's eyes widened slightly. No one had dared speak so bluntly. Daniel's lips curved faintly. Not quite a smile, but something close. At least you do not hide. Amaka shot her a venomous look, whispering under her breath. Street rat. Halima's turn came next. She trembled, her delicate hands twisting in her lap. I am Halima, she began softly. My father died when I was young. My mother sells vegetables in the market. I came here because life has given me little, and when the invitation came, I thought perhaps Allah was giving me a chance at something more. Her voice broke, tears spilling down her cheeks. But I swear, Daniel, I am not here for riches. I saw you play the piano, and I thought, here's a man who understands sorrow. I only want someone to see me the way I see them. Silence followed her words. Even Amaka looked unsettled. Daniel's gaze softened, though he said nothing. In her trembling honesty, Halima had revealed more strength than Amaka's confidence or Ngozi's fire. Finally, Daniel turned to Chioma. "And you, the quiet one, who are you really?" All eyes fell on her. Chioma remained still, her fingers tracing the edge of her journal. "I am Chioma," she said simply. Her voice was steady, almost too calm. "I came here because I was chosen, but I stay here because I see a man the world refuses to see. A man hidden behind anger and chains. You want me to confess my secrets? Some truths are not yet ready. But know this, Daniel, while others fight for your crown, I fight for your soul." Her words were like a whisper of wind through fire, soft but impossible to ignore. Daniel felt a strange pull in his chest. He wanted to demand more, to rip open the pages of her journal and see what she hid. But something stopped him, perhaps fear. The day passed in unease. Amaka retreated to her room, seething. "He dares to expose me in front of everyone. I'll make him regret this humiliation. If I cannot win with charm, I'll win with strategy." Ngozi, emboldened, strutted through the halls, singing loudly to mask her own creeping doubt. What if honesty wasn't enough? Halima prayed in the small garden, her tears watering the cassava she had planted. She prayed not for wealth, but for the strength to stay. Chioma sat by the balcony, writing. No one knew what words she spilled, but her face bore a shadow of pain. That evening, a storm rolled across the skies, lightning flashing over the mansion. The women gathered in the living hall as thunder shook the windows. Suddenly, the lights flickered and went out. Darkness swallowed the mansion. A scream pierced the air. It was Halima. She had stumbled into the hallway, clutching her arm. A golden bracelet glittered in her hand. She tried to steal it. Amaka's voice rang out from the shadows. "I caught her red-handed." Gasps filled the hall. Halima shook her head desperately. "No, I didn't steal it. I found it in my bed. Someone planted it there." Accusations flew in the dark. Ngozi shouted, "Liar! You're just like the rest of us, hungry for gold." But Daniel's voice cut through the chaos, steady and commanding. "Enough." A servant brought a lantern, and its dim glow illuminated the scene. Daniel wheeled forward, his eyes sharp as blades. "If anyone is playing games in this house," he said coldly, "I will find the truth. And when I do, there will be no forgiveness." Later, as the storm subsided, Daniel sat alone in the library, his thoughts restless. To his surprise, Chioma entered quietly, carrying her journal. "You look like a man fighting ghosts," she said softly. Daniel looked up, exhaustion etched on his face. "I don't know who to trust. Every smile feels like a mask. Every word feels like a trap." Chioma hesitated, then placed her journal on the table before him. "Read." Daniel blinked. "You would share your secrets." She nodded. "Because if I do not let you in, then I am no different from the rest." His hands trembled as he opened the book. Inside were sketches of the garden, notes of the piano melodies he had played, and, most shocking, poems about him. Words that spoke of his loneliness, his fire, his hidden strength. She had been watching him, not his wealth. For the first time in years, Daniel's chest ached, not with bitterness, but with something terrifyingly close to hope. But outside the library, a figure lurked in the shadows, listening, watching. Amaka's eyes narrowed as she clenched her fists. "So, the quiet one thinks she's won his heart? Let her enjoy her little victory. Tomorrow, I will tear her world apart." The storm outside may have passed, but a greater one was brewing inside the mansion. The mansion woke under uneasy silence. Servants moved quickly, whispering among themselves, for they knew something was coming. Tension hung like smoke, heavy and suffocating. Daniel did not join breakfast. Instead, he summoned the four women to the great hall. The room was grand, its chandeliers glittering, yet the air felt colder than iron. Mrs. Adesawa sat quietly at the corner, watching. Her eyes were sharp, her silence deliberate. Daniel wheeled himself forward, his face unreadable. His hands tightened against the armrests as he spoke. "Today," he said, his voice carrying through the hall, "I will decide. But before I choose, I want the truth. No masks, no games. The woman who stands beside me must be fire, not ash. Amaka was the first to step forward, dressed in a crimson gown that shimmered like flame. Daniel, she began with a trembling smile. I know I faltered. I know I made mistakes. But I can be the woman you need. You deserve someone strong, someone who can carry the weight of your empire. That is me. She reached out, her fingers brushing his hand. But Daniel pulled back. Strength without truth is poison, and your hunger for wealth speaks louder than your words. Amaka's face hardened. So what if I want wealth? Do you think love alone feeds a marriage? I would give you loyalty, protection, and power. Is that not enough? Ngozi laughed bitterly. Power? Sister, you mean chains. You want to bind him, not love him. Amaka's eyes darkened with fury. Ngozi rose next, her laughter gone. She walked forward, her steps firm. Daniel, she said, her voice raw. I will not flatter you with false words. I don't love you yet, but I could, because when I look at you, I don't see pity. I see a man who can break the world if he wanted, and I want to stand beside that man, to fight with him, to fight for him. Her honesty was fierce, almost violent in its passion. Daniel's eyes softened, but he remained silent. Halima stood slowly, clutching her scarf like a shield. Tears welled in her eyes. I cannot compete with them, she whispered. I came here because I thought maybe I could find a place where I belong. But this house, she broke down, sobbing. This house is not for me. I am not made for battles and masks. I only wanted love. But perhaps love does not want me. Her words pierced Daniel's heart. For a moment, he wanted to reach for her, but he knew her truth. She was too gentle for the war raging around him. Mrs. Adesawa rose quietly and walked to Halima, laying a hand on her shoulder. My dear, she said softly, you are pure, but sometimes purity is devoured in fire. You deserve peace, not war. Halima bowed her head. She had lost, but in her loss, she had also found freedom. All eyes turned to Chioma, the quiet one, the mystery. She stood, her journal clutched tightly. I have no speech to give, she said, her voice calm but steady. Because love is not a performance. It is not bought, or begged, or fought for like a crown. It simply exists. And Daniel, she paused, her eyes locking with his. You exist in my heart. From the first time I saw your hands play the piano, I saw not a man bound by chains, but a man who could turn pain into music. That was the man I wanted, not for riches, not for power, but because he is Daniel. She opened her journal, revealing sketches of him, words written in secret, poems filled with longing. The hall went silent. Daniel's chest tightened. For the first time in years, his eyes burned with tears he could not control. But Amaka would not accept defeat. Rage twisted her face as she stormed forward. Lies, she shouted. All lies. You think she loves you, Daniel? She loves the fantasy she wrote in her little book. Do you think she knows the real you? The anger, the bitterness, the broken man who will never walk again. Her voice shook the hall. She does not love you, Daniel. She pities you. Just like the world does. Daniel froze, her words slicing deep. For a moment, doubt clawed at him. Was Chioma's love real? Or was it just another mask? Chioma stepped forward, her eyes blazing. No, Amaka. I do not pity him. I love him because of his scars, not despite them. Because those scars are proof that he has survived what would have destroyed lesser men. She knelt before Daniel's chair, her hands trembling but firm. Daniel, you are not broken. You are alive. And I will spend the rest of my life reminding you of that, if you let me. Amaka screamed, her voice breaking. No, he is mine. I will not lose to a quiet little shadow. In a sudden frenzy, she lunged for Chioma, grabbing her journal and ripping it apart. Pages scattered across the floor like fallen feathers. Gasps filled the hall. Daniel's face twisted with fury. His voice thundered. Enough! The room shook with the weight of his rage. Amaka, you came here for gold. You came here for power. But you forgot, my heart is not for sale. He turned to the guards. Remove her. Amaka struggled, her screams echoing as she was dragged from the hall. "You'll regret this, Daniel. She will betray you too. You'll see. You'll all see." Her voice faded into the distance, swallowed by the mansion's silence. The hall was quiet once more. Only the sound of rain outside filled the void. Daniel looked at Chioma, who was still kneeling, her torn pages scattered around her. Slowly, painfully, he reached out and touched her hand. "I have been surrounded by lies all my life," he whispered. "But you gave me truth. Not dressed in gold, not wrapped in promises. Just truth. And that is more precious than anything." Chioma's lips trembled as tears streamed down her face. Daniel pulled her close, and for the first time in years, he let himself weep, not in weakness, but in release. Ngozi smirked, shaking her head. "Well, I guess I've lost. But at least it was to the right woman." Even Halima smiled faintly through her tears. "May your love be blessed." Mrs. Adesawa rose, her eyes glistening with pride. "Then it is decided. My son has found his true love." That night, the mansion was alive with warmth again. The storm had passed, the shadows dispersed. Daniel and Chioma sat together in the garden, their hands entwined. "You have changed me," Daniel whispered. Chioma smiled softly. "No, Daniel. I only reminded you of who you were all along." He leaned his head against hers, the music of the night wrapping around them. For the first time, Daniel felt free, not from his wheelchair, but from the chains of bitterness that had bound him for so long. And as the stars shone above, the sun once hidden in shadows finally stepped into the light, with love at his side.